Oh, welcome everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Awakening. That was a weird glitch of the awakening to the truth. We're here with Carson French from Scientific Researchers of the Unknown. Both of our
Right.
shows have groups on Facebook. You can check out our social media pages there, and that's where we post most of our investigative sources. Links to that will be down in the description of our bios, because I'm assuming you're probably going to upload this podcast to your channel as well. So
Also,
also.
check out srotu.org, srotu.org. That's where we post all our stuff.
And if you are in my Discord, we do have a channel that does link to the store, which is also linked to his website as well, if you cannot find the link to that. So it should be fairly accessible. All right.
Um,
So recently, I know we've been talking on and off, but you've been very busy with work and exploring the unknown. And so recently you were in Yosemite, California, if I'm correct.
yeah.
So what investigation took place when you went there, and what did you experience while you were there?
So I investigated many things. Yosemite is almost like its own separate world of paranormal. Like there's so many different things to investigate there, but um, the main thing that I investigated while I was there was the Awani Hotel. Now, this hotel was built um, it was like late 1800s, early 1900s, and um, it's a very, very historical hotel. Um, the architecture is based off of Native American art, and it's a crazy, crazy location, but I met another researcher there named Ella, and we investigated the hotel on multiple occasions. And to be honest, we didn't really find much. It wasn't, I would not call it a paranormal hotspot. The only strange occurrence that did happen was um, we were in the dining room, which is the most famous room of the hotel, and we went there at night, so it was empty. And I said, "This place is not haunted. There's nothing here to indicate that this place is haunted." And right after I said that, behind me in the middle of the room, there was just a big bang, and I turn around, and there's nothing there. So I have no idea what that made that noise, but my theory is that something from this spiritual world was hearing me say how I thought the place wasn't haunted, and then they were trying to indicate to me that they were there and that there is something there.
So,
But other than that, I after hours of researching that place, we found nothing else to indicate that it is haunted.
so what is the so what like was the feeling that you felt when you heard that noise? Was it like a sense of like a dangerous spirit, or like a negative spirit, or maybe like a positive spirit that said like that wanted to say like, "Hey, we're here."
You know, I wasn't really focusing too much on my feelings at that time, but it was definitely a feeling of um, awe, you know?
Hmm.
Because I was convinced that there was nothing there, and then in a split second, that one instance can do something to change your mind.
That is very interesting. Maybe we can send some of our investigative scientists out there to the field, and maybe we could do another full investigation sometime in the future, when
That's
we do have that opportunity.
right. And Yosemite is a very popular location. If any of our listeners happen to be in the area of Yosemite National Park, specifically Yosemite Valley, we encourage you to go check out the Awani Hotel and see if you can find anything haunted there. There are a lot of stories of hauntings, but me personally, I don't think it's too much of a hot spot.
But there is potentially something there.
Right. There is a potential.
So, as you were staying in Yosemite, if I'm correct, you were in some sort of mobile tent, we
That's
can
right.
call it. Kind of like one of those that you would see that maybe, I don't know, park service rangers stay in. That's kind of like, big, giant, huge windows and then a giant fan as your AC. I guess it's a kind of what I picture it being. And so, kind of going off of that, when you were like, I don't know, maybe asleep at night or kind of going to bed, I know that there's a lot of noises that people might hear at night in Yosemite. Was there anything that came to mind that you heard, or maybe that you thought you heard?
There are a lot of interesting noises that I hear from my. I call it a tent, but it's really like it's almost like a shed with tent walls. It's like a one room little shed that usually they would fit three people to live in there at a time, but because of COVID, I was the only one living in there. So it was actually pretty nice and I really loved it. But one thing is that the walls, they're made out of like tent pretty much. So they don't block any sound coming in or out. And so at night, I did hear a lot of interesting things. I remember specifically my first night there, while I was falling asleep, I heard some like howls coming from the woods. And I was like, that sounds a lot like Sasquatch because my tent is, I was on the edge of the campground. So I was right up against the forest. In fact, there was a deer that lived behind my tent, like underneath the tree, because there was a little ditch, and she would sleep there during the day while it was hot because it was shady and it was like in a ditch. But, anyways, it could have been a Sasquatch, but I doubt it because Yosemite Valley is such a crowded place. It's full of campers and tourists everywhere. And it's like a little city in the middle of the wilderness. But basically there's a lot of like people at night, like rednecks, like people just like howl like for fun. They'll just go like woo.
Yeah, so it possibly could have been an echo of, a group of hikers or a group of people partying,
Yeah,
or
a lot of people will just yell at night for no reason, and that makes me think that that's what I really heard. But also, there are so many people in Yosemite Valley. I would highly doubt that a Sasquatch would live there. Although I think it is very probable that they are in Yosemite National Park because Yosemite Valley is less than 1% of the entire national park. So I do believe that a Sasquatch could be living in Yosemite National Park up in the High Sierra, just not in Yosemite Valley, which is where I lived.
very interesting. So, do you think that there might be some sort of connection between UFO, paranormal phenomenon, spirits, and Bigfoot or Sasquatch, potentially even Dogman as well, connected within Yosemite?
I do, yes. In fact, that's one thing that I'm investigating on my show, Scientific Researchers of the Unknown, for season two. I'm trying to find this connection between spirits, extraterrestrials, and Sasquatch because we've talked to people on my show, and you've also talked to Jesus Pion Jr., also known as Gonzo,
Yep.
or Breaking Bigfoot on YouTube. But he told me that he's seen UFOs many times while hunting Bigfoot, like specifically. So,
So there might be a link between that, and maybe we can bring him back onto the show, and maybe we can kind of see how we can pinpoint that as a conclusion, and maybe get down to who's behind the pilot of being the main pilot of the UFO craft.
right. Another thing that he also told me is that um, he said that he believes that there are Sasquatch piloting the flying saucers or the UFOs.
That
So
that could be a possibility, but as we don't have the exact technology yet to be able to, take a zoom camera and point up to a UFO and see a little extraterrestrial or Bigfoot piloting the UFO. So it could be very well possible that a UFO could be piloted by Bigfoot or extraterrestrial. But also going off of extraterrestrials, this is kind of one question I've been wondering is are these extraterrestrials people like you and me, but just from another planet? Or are they like from the movie E.T., as we expect a lost alien who came to Earth, and it's very interesting because Hollywood kind of plays tricks with our minds to make us think what reality would be. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that.
that's right. And I think there's one thing that I've always been saying. I've been saying this for a while, and it's one piece of the puzzle that people have been kind of brushing over, but I think it's a very important piece, and it's that these UFOs are seen coming in and out of the ocean.
Oh,
So
USOs, unidentified submersible objects.
that's right, but even the more recent encounters described by the Navy, they are often described coming in and out of the ocean surrounding warships. And it's, I think, if these crafts are able to travel through the ocean, what, what, why wouldn't they be able to live down there?
Well, we only have 5% of the ocean discovered, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
which
So,
is a pretty big number that we're missing, a big chunk that we're missing, because we have 95% of the ocean unexplored. And even then, when we lost the Titanic, it was only so far down in the ocean. We barely could have even gone down there. So my theory is maybe there's some sort of secret base under the oceans that maybe is kept from another form of civilization that's more advanced than us, and
that's
it might be a top secret facility that we don't even know about, and it could also be the gateway to another world that we've never even seen before. Because in Star Wars, there's been an episode, I can't remember the exact episode of my head, but Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker head with Jar Jar Binks to the underwater world where they met with, all the slime-looking creatures, and
the
I think it,
Gungans.
yeah, and they went down there, and it's like a whole underwater city. So maybe that's kind of what I'm
Right.
picturing, that there might be in these waters that we can't get to. And even when we get the technology to go to these underwater cities, we don't know their technology. They might have the technology to disappear and become invisible. And, I've heard from interviews of other people that Sasquatch has the ability to have a hidden fortress that can turn invisible. That's what I've heard from interviews, from watching interviews. Uh, and it's just very interesting that, there's this technology that's hidden from our own eyesight that we can't even see. So I think that's one thing that we should also question and understand is, where do these UFOs, UAPs, where do they all come from? There's so much to figure out and to understand, to research, to investigate, and I think that we should take all these questions, write them down on pieces of paper, ask them, understand them, research them.
Right. And one thing that we talked about on my show recently, Scientific Radio of the Unknown, was the fact that George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, he received the whole story from a dream that he had. So it's quite possible that Gunga City, the underwater city from the Phantom Menace, it could have been a vision from sent to George Lucas from these creatures. So what's interesting about movies is that everything that is imaginary is based off of something in real life. So oftentimes these science fiction movies, a lot of it isn't real, but a lot of it is real. And that's what our job is, to figure out the truth from the BS.
Yeah, I do definitely agree. I think that it's hard to come to a conclusion because we have, the debunkers on the news that think they know it all, and they try and hide the truth even after, not to get too political, but Trump's administration wanting to do the UFO 180-day release, but yet they're still trying to hide the truth. And I think that's one thing that's very interesting, is that why do they come up with all these lies all of a sudden at the last minute? Like, oh, this was a balloon flying at 248 miles an hour, or this was a balloon flying at 500 miles an hour. Well, if you keep making up theory, is it's definitely something of otherworldly technology that they're hiding, that they don't want to be exposed.
Exactly. You have to be careful trusting your sources, the news, even books. Even oftentimes people will be like, "Oh, I read books, everything in this book is real." But I mean, just because it's in a book doesn't mean that's true either. The only thing that you can trust is yourself. Even and paranormal awakening and scientific research is the unknown, because we only tell the facts. But if you want to know the truth, you have to go out there and find it for yourself. You can't sit
Exactly what Jesus Pine Jr. told us.
Right. You can't sit around on your computer all day and expect to find the truth. You have to go out there and find it. And sometimes the truth is right in front of you and you just don't realize what it is. Sometimes it's all about your mental perception.
Exactly, with season 1, episode 2 of my show, and I think season 1 of episode 4 or 3. When I found the X marks and the trident of potential Sasquatch or otherworldly beings technology, to be able to create these giant structures. There ain't gonna be a person who's gonna walk out into the forest and create giant X mark structures. And so it makes me wonder, like, why do they do this? Is it connection between them and UFOs? Is it them and how they live? Is it their housing? Is it and there's a lot of questions that we need to explore and investigate, and really come to conclusion. And I think that if you guys in the chat, uh, those that do comment down below on either of our YouTube channels, please do comment down some answers, or express your own feelings and opinions, because I think it's very interesting that we do have a lot of paranormal phenomenon that needs to be discussed, and I think it does need to be explored and given an answer, instead
Right.
of people debunking on the news and making this whole thing seem fake. Because I know from watching Tucker Carlson, he's been talking a lot about UFOs. It seems almost like every other week he's talking about UFOs, and it's very interesting that when he does talk about them, he gives his own thoughts on it and doesn't necessarily say that it's false or that's fake or this and that. So I think that's one thing that we should all take into consideration, of make sure to know where you're getting your sources from, as you said earlier, and to actually get out in the field and to do the research.
That's right.
And same thing for work. It's good for work. If you're applying for a job in the near future after you get your degree, go get an internship. Go do something. It's not rocket science to actually do anything. Like, being able to do anything is easy to do. You can go out into the forest. You can go on Google Maps, look up your local forest, and go hiking and take video. Submit your videos to me or to Carson or to our Facebook pages. And yeah, that's kind of where we will be taking those locations and maybe possibly investigating them in the future.
Right. And I just want to clarify for our listeners, I am not talking down on the internet or the news at all. Those are very valuable resources, but you can't only be using one thing to research something.
Or to
It,
rely on.
right. Personally, I find the internet is a very good tool for finding leads or topics to research. For example, I am currently doing an investigation on werewolves, and um, I went onto various internet chat rooms asking about the origin of werewolves, and from doing that, I was able to find different topics to research. But from there, I can't just trust what they say. I have to find these topics, and now I have to go out into the real world and research these myself. So the internet is useful for finding things to research, but you can't only say that is your research. You actually have to go out there and do the physical research to find if you really want to know the truth.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's one thing, to be able to. I was a watcher of your show before I became a part of your show, and as well as creating my own show. I was a viewer. I wasn't just, I didn't magically appear into Srotu. I think it's one thing when you watch and understand where we come from, where our backgrounds come from, where other researchers, investigators come from. I think it's important to realize, nobody's fake in the paranormal research. And although there might be people that you agree or disagree with, I think, there's a lot of people that disagree and agree with me, and there might be people that disagree or agree with you. But I think when it comes down to, the paranormal world, that we are all one team. Like, Paranormal Awakening is just a title for me. It's same thing with Srotu. It's titles that describe our group, our what we like, and I think that we're all one big research team. The whole world, we're a big research team, and I think that when we invite more people to our groups, we can form even a bigger research team that would eventually be able to find out those questions that we've been asking with the technology that we invite those people to bring along on our adventures. So I think it's one thing that's very interesting that, we can all work together to find out the truth that they're hiding from us.
That's right. And sometimes the truth is something you don't want to hear. Because a lot of people, they have like this idea of what they think the truth is, and they want to go out there and prove that their idea is real. But sometimes when you go out there and you witness the truth for yourself, it's not pretty. It's not something that you wanted.
I,
So you
I'm
have to
I'm
keep
the
that
same
in
way.
mind too.
I'm the same way. Going off of what you're saying about that, whether you're applying for work or, you want everyone wants to have their dream job, whether that's being a Navy SEAL or something cool, like, you're James Bond, like a being an agent. you know we got to all think about what realistic goals we have. Like, for instance, one of my goals is I want to be able to build a rocket, send it at least into a decent height to explore some more portions of our Earth for scientific research. Of course, I'm not going to have the money that NASA or SpaceX has, and or the recent company Galactic something. And I think that when it comes down to goals for exploration, we need to set realistic goals, and on top of that, goals that fit our research. Because it wouldn't make sense to spend time researching something that isn't worth researching. So I think that when you want to get into research, make sure you understand and feel comfortable around the topic that you're researching. Same thing with a career or job. Don't get a job at Walmart or Target that is going to make you break your back and be painful for the rest of your life. Work at a job that makes you feel uncomfortable or makes you feel exciting. And so I think that's something that I want, every researcher to take into account, and even for our listeners, to take into account of, understanding what you want to do for your goals and your research.
That's right. That's right. And one thing that people don't really realize about life, and it's something that I realized just a couple of years ago, is there are really infinite possibilities. Like, you can believe what you want about free will or predetermination, but I think if there's something that you want to do, you can do it, whatever it is. If you want to be a secret agent, then do it. You can do it.
If you want to join Scientific Researchers of the Unknown or Paranormal Awakening, well, I'm not going to speak for Scientific Researchers of the Unknown, but if you want to join Paranormal Awakening, by all means, do it.
That's right. And when I was just a high schooler, I always had this dream of being a paranormal researcher. And I was thinking, oh, that's just something that happens in the movies or on TV. But then one day I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it, you know? And everything that I can put my mind to can become a reality. And that is what I was able to achieve. And now I have one of the most popular paranormal research shows on TV. And I'm growing to do even more things in the future.
And also, going off of that, I got into paranormal research from being a member of your podcast, and that's kind of how I was awakened to understanding more about paranormal world, and the paranormal world itself is very fascinating. Even if you don't believe in the paranormal world, it's okay not to believe it. You don't have to. You don't have to believe in religion either, and it's okay if you do or don't. And all respect to everyone who has their own thoughts and feelings towards their specific topic. I know there's people that don't like certain things in the paranormal world, and that do like certain things in the paranormal world. And it just one thing that I think some people should keep their mind open towards is not everyone's the same, because if this world was about all people being the same, it would be a really weird world. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it, is there anything else that we're missing as far as what we need to discuss or should be discussed?
I just have a few announcements for the viewers. If you haven't heard, um, I have put out a $10,000 bounty on the cryptid, the Lake Man. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to srotu.org/lakeman. Um, and another thing is, if there are any listeners who know anything about werewolves or possibly you are a werewolf, please email contact@srotu.org to contact me. I am doing an investigative report on werewolves currently.
All right, and maybe we can form a team as well to investigate those further topics. And so, also, guys, don't forget uh, Carson, aka the president of Srotu. He has a hotline, a scientific research hotline. I'm going to be working on mine very soon. I will keep everyone updated on that.
The number
But
for the hotline of the unknown is 916-534-8753. So if you have any questions or if you have any reports, please call that number and we will investigate.
and in case any of our viewers missed that, if you don't mind just reading that off one more time.
That's 916-534-8753. Or if you want, you can also go to or you can go to srotu.org/contact.
All right, guys, and I want to say first and foremost, thank you, Carson, for being on my show, and thank you to Carson's viewers for letting me be on your guys' show as well. Because I know we're probably gonna mirror this podcast in some way, shape, or form. And I really want everyone to take in consideration of what we talked about today and really begin to think about the paranormal world because I know many of you. I've talked to many of my own viewers on my own podcast, and you guys are so smart with what you guys talk about and bringing new ideas to the paranormal world that I've never even thought about until I've talked to you guys. So I do invite all of you to be welcomed to the paranormal world of paranormal phenomenon. So I want to say once again, thank you so much, Carson from Scientific Researchers of the Unknown. Also, a big shout out to Breaking Bigfoot, a great guy, great legend. And yeah, I want to say thank you so much to all of you who do support our shows. We're going to be working on so much great things to happen in the future. Season 2 is going to be pretty sweet of both our shows. I know I'm a little bit behind on filming, but I'm going to be out and about probably this upcoming weekend. So without further ado, I look forward to seeing what Carson has for season 2 and as well as myself. So thank you so much once again, guys, and I do appreciate Carson and his time. And make sure to subscribe to Scientific Researchers of the Unknown, as well as myself, Paranormal Awakening, and Breaking Bigfoot. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, anytime.